When the red lights, here we go. We are live. This is Birth Moms Real Talk Saturday chat, and I'm so excited because today we're making history. We are, what do you say, putting on blast, putting in the front row. Adoptees and birth moms are going to talk together. So we're going to have a dialogue. This is Adoptee Remembrance Day. We're taking it as a way to have a dialogue and share with each other honest, true, real talk. So we have some guests here already. I'll introduce them, or allow them to introduce themselves, but we've got more coming. This is just going to be a day of there's no script. So coming in, talking honestly, share what you want, share as little, as much as you want. And people tuning in, please put your questions, your comments, and all of that. So we've got Kitty coming in. I'm not sure her picture can be up or whether she can put that up. Maybe she will. Thought I saw you, Kitty. So I'm Yvonne, as you all know, host of Birth Moms Real Talk. And of course, the first one I've got to introduce. And believe it or not, Damon, this is November, and that was last November we first talked for the first time.
That's right.
With that. So we've got to do remembrance of that. So my first guest is Damon Davis, who's a host of Who Am I Really? Who's an adoptee. And we're going to go back full circle to talk about in 2020, why this podcast even started. We also have Rose on, who's a birth mom. And believe it or not, Rose's birth daughter, Christine. We have Kitty on, who's a birth mom. She has a son. I'm not sure her son is going to join us, but we're going to have some dialogue. So here we come. Kristen. Okay, we got somebody else coming in. Let me let her in. Hi, Kristen.
Hi.
Hi. You got a counterpart. They coming in too?
Me?
Yeah. Is your
Oh, Lindsay? No, she's not coming in.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, welcome. Good. We have a good crew here. So we're going to start off with Damon. Introduce yourself. Share a little bit. That's what we're going to do. First, do a short intro.
Happy to. So I'm Damon Davis. I'm host of the Who Am I Really podcast. I am an adoptee in reunion with my biological mother and father, respectively. I started the Who Am I Really podcast back in 2017 when I had this incredible reunion experience with my birth mother. And as I started talking to other adoptees, I realized, not everybody has this amazing experience. They're all very different. And as I've sort of come to say, there are amazing adoptions and awful reunions, and there are awful adoptions and amazing reunions, and everything in between. You take a person's culture, you take their, nation of origin, and you mix all of those things up, and every adoptee story is different. And I have just learned so much from the adoptee community, and speaking to now today's show was 160 guests on the Who Am I Really podcast. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Damon. Rose, why don't you come in next?
I'm Rose. I am a birth mom to Christine, and we've been in reunion over 20 years. And I'll let Christine tell you the story, but Damon actually started this for me, our coming out of the fog for me. Wow. But anyway, that's mine. You can go, Christine.
Okay. All right, Christine.
Hi, my name's Christine. I'm an adoptee. I've been in reunion with my mom and my paternal side for 23 years this October. And I'm also in reunion with my paternal side, which is just a couple years old. So navigating the newness of that relationship.
Very good. Kitty, I'm gonna come to you. Kitty came on. She wasn't scheduled, but Kitty's like my birth mom bud. So we talk about a lot of things. Yeah. So Kitty, come on in.
This is so impromptu, but I'm just going to preface this with I am the real deal today. This is like no shower up, like this is me. But I'm here because Yvonne, yes, you're such a special friend to me. And I wanted to share in this. So I am a birth mom to a 3-year-old, and we've been in reunion for 5 years. I'm also an adoptee, and I was able to be in reunion with my birth mom off and on before she passed away. And I'm also an adoptive mom, and my adoptive son has kept reunion with his birth mom.
Wow.
So she's all three. She covers the whole
You
triad.
are a unicorn in our universe. It's
Oh.
unreal.
It can get confusing.
Indeed. Okay, Kristen, come on in and introduce yourself.
All right. Hi, I'm Kristen. I am an adoptee, and I'm also a birth mother. And I have been in reunion with both my birth parents and my birth daughter since about 2004, so about 17 years.
Wow.
And, we took a while before we met face to face, but both reunions went well. My daughter's basically joined my brood, and I've been more than welcome to do anything that my birth family has. I have 2 full-blooded birth sisters, and I couldn't imagine life now without them.
Wow. Wow. Well, you know my story because I told it first on Damon's podcast of that I'm a birth mom of a now 48-year-old son. He just turned 48 October 11th. And Damon, your birthday was October 14th?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
So we've been in reunion since 2018, so 3 years. So as you said, my head is still spinning, it's still spinning, there's still the surrealness is always there too. So I'm just so excited. I'm really intrigued too, because we got Kristen, who's a birth mom and adoptee. We got Kitty, who's all three. We got Damon, who's an adoptee, Christine, an adoptee, and Rose, a birth mom, and me as a birth mom. So we covered it all, I believe, with that. So some of the conversation here, as we say, we call this Adoptees Remembrance Day. And as we can look at the stats, so adoptees go through a lot, and a lot have really with committed suicide or addiction or whatever. But really, this spin today, and it's not a spin, but really the reality of talking, it's about real talk. And it's about being able to ask the question in a open community or dialogue about questions you may want to know. So we really want to hear from adoptees and saying what you want to know from birth moms, even your own mom, if you got a chance to meet, or just in general. I'm so pleased that we have listeners of Birth Moms Real Talk, adoptees, birth moms, even adoptive moms. And some of the questions they'll ask me is like, I'll put those up for us today. But we're going to start out with the adoptees. Adoptees, share with us what you want birth mothers or natural mothers to know. Whether it's your particular one, whether you've had reunion, whether they're no longer here, but just in general. So, of course, Damon, I'm going to come to you first.
Sure. So I'm going to start with my own personal experience first. And when I began my reunion journey, I think the main thing that came to mind for me was this woman, this stranger that I don't know, gave birth to me, and she has no clue how I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Literally none. And that was a basic premise of what I started my outreach to be. I didn't want to go into anything else except this is who I am. I'm okay now. And this is how I got to be okay. This was a little bit about my life leading up to this moment. And I tried to write my introductory letter with the idea in mind that if I didn't ever hear from her in return, that I had said my piece, that I had notified her that I was okay. And if she couldn't bring herself to be in touch with me, that's fine. I just wanted her to know I was okay. Everything else that came beyond that was absolute icing on the cake. I mean, of course, I wanted to see if I looked like her. I wanted to see, if we had any traits in common and things along those lines. But I recognized that this was a traumatic experience for her. Adoption doesn't start from some happy-go-lucky place. It starts from somewhere that is unplanned, unfavorable, and undesirable. And I knew that my return could potentially bring back every memory of that time. So I wanted to just start in that place of just let me let you know I'm okay. So, Christine, let me turn it over to you and see what your thoughts are.
So, Damon, I'm listening to you, and how old were you when you first started reunion?
I was 36.
Okay. I wish I would have known all those things and gone into reunion with all of that knowledge and insight. So, I ended up in the Catholic Charities office on my 18th birthday seeking information. So I was still a kid, and I didn't understand the trauma that I experienced or that my birth mother had experienced as well. And so for me at that time, I was just hoping and praying that she would accept me and want me to be a part of her life. And I was willing to really fit and mold into whatever that needed to look like to do that. Intellectually growing up, I knew that my mom was 15 when she got pregnant with me, 16 when I was born. And, on a cognitive level, I could understand why I was given up for adoption, but emotionally, it really manifested a lot differently. And so, there's a lot of rejection sensitivity, and I was desperate for a connection with her. So.
I'll question back to both of you, and we'll move on to Kristen and to Kitty. Damien, did you think about your birth mom before you started the search? When were you told you were adopted? What was that early experience of you even realizing that you were an adoptee?
Yeah,
I had that same question to you, Christine.
I grew up with the knowledge that I was adopted from, I can't even remember there being a big, huge sit-down discussion. I was told from an early age. So I grew up with the knowledge that I was adopted, and it was a part of me. And one of the facts I always like to point out is I was adopted into a Black family. My adoptive mother is light skinned, my adoptive dad is dark skinned, and I'm in the middle. So we looked like we could have been family. And there were some odd other coincidences too. Like both of my adoptive parents have October birthdays, which are also bookended by I'm in the middle and they bookend my birthday. So there were all of these things that kind of made us feel similar, which let my adoption be just a non-issue for me. So to answer your question more directly, I didn't necessarily think about my birth mother that much. It wasn't until my own son was born and I watched my wife carry my son, and then I'm there with this kid that we created out of love, and I'm looking at this person. This is a new guy in the world that new people are going to meet, and he's going to have experiences. And I had experiences because my adoptive parents, gave me those experiences, but it was someone else who brought me into the world the same way that my wife did.
Right.
I mean, the birth of my son, Seth, was just the most impactful thing in my journey that I couldn't turn around. So it was only at that point that I really dug in and started to think, man, there's a woman out there that I need to find, and I need to see what's going on with her and let her know what's going on with me.
Absolutely. And Christine, you said you showed up at Catholic Charities 18, but prior to that, when did you realize you were adopted, or did you think about your birth mom?
I knew I was adopted for as long as I can remember. Kind of like Damon, I don't remember a big sit-down conversation at all. My adoptive parents had a few books that they gave us as a kid. And I can tell you that honestly, I longed for my birth mother my entire life, even as a young child, but it really intensified around like ages 8 and 9. I wanted to find her and knew I needed to be with her. I did not fit in very well with my family who raised me. We look incredibly different, physically and just kind of personal qualities and characteristics. And so it was kind of hard to validate myself as an actual real person until I got into reunion and saw that genetic mirroring in so many different ways.
Right. We're going to talk about that. Yeah. When you see your image staring back at you. Now, Kitty, you and Kristen come in with being a birth mom, adoptee, whatever. So talk about your adoptee perspective. What did you want your birth mom to know? Did you think about her? When were you told you were adopted? And what was your experience until you met your mom, or if you did end up meeting your mom?
I can start since you didn't name one of us, but so I had very different thoughts and needs when I was growing up. I remember being told I was adopted from the get-go. And the thing with me, which people are finding kind of odd, is I didn't have the desire to meet my birth parents. I never really remember wondering. I had a great upbringing. They were my mom and my dad, and I did not feel this need. But like Christine, I ended up in a Catholic Charities office when I was pregnant as a teenager, and that's where I was adopted through as well. And so after I placed my baby, I realized they might come looking for me, anybody. And of course, I would welcome that. So anytime I moved or changed my phone number, I called Catholic Charities and said, hey, this is my new information. If someone comes looking for me, I'm fine with it. But I myself never instigated a search. I did not have a need. I also felt like 18 years later, I did not want to interrupt my daughter's life. You know, if she had a great life, which she ultimately did, I didn't want to be that person that just walks in and say, hey, here I am. You got to accept me, you know, whatever. And we all have different and unique feelings. And I'm finding I might be on that weird side of not having this desire.
And still not having it?
You know, I thoroughly love my birth daughter and my birth family. And like I said, my sisters. And so I do have a desire to continue to foster that and remain with the connections we have.
Okay.
What I'm saying, before I met them, I didn't
Okay.
find that innate need
Okay.
to find them. So,
Okay.
and the reunions took a while. My birth father, like on Father's Day, called me 81 times and wanted me to say Happy Father's Day.
Oh, wow.
And I had just met
And
him.
this is before you, or you just met him. I'll go say, I was thinking he was calling on Father's Day and you didn't know who he was.
Yeah, no, I had just met him. And that kind of threw me for a loop. I was just like, oh, I don't know. I had an awesome dad coming up and I spent my Father's Day with him. And then, you know, but it's all come around. He's wonderful. I love the relationship. It just took a while to get to where we are now.
Okay. All right. We're going to talk about that because it's like, even when you meet someone, it's like, do I really want to meet him and all that? So Kitty, what's your adoptee perspective? Put on your adoptee hat right now because you got 3, but I want you to put the adoptee hat on.
Well, first of all, I want to say, Kristen, I pretty much what you said, I can, yeah, me too. I felt the same exact way. So I was placed through Catholic Charities and I was adopted through them. And I just grew up thinking, okay, this is okay. This is life, you know, as I see it. I didn't think anything really beyond that. But when I would get in a fight with my adoptive mom, I would throw a terrible phrase to her. I wish I was raised by my real mom. That was the time that I would kind of play the card. But as far as wondering or longing or feeling that connection, no, I didn't. I didn't feel that. When I did go to seek out my birth mom, it was out of necessity because my husband and I had been married, and as we were growing our family, there were a lot of medical questions asked that I was like, unknown, don't know. And that's when I thought, okay, I need to see, you know, what's going on. And unfortunately, I had preconceived ideas about my birth mom before I ever talked to her on the phone because I met my birth aunt first. They didn't get along. They're very opposites. So even in trying to meet up with my birth mom, it was very difficult. So I started to look for my birth father, and my entry to, you know, to talking to each of the 3, because there were 3 in consideration. I would say, I am only reaching you only for facts. I do not need anything. I am financially set. I just need information. So after, you know, meeting each of the 3 prospective dads, I still had that feeling like when I did talk to my birth mom, I really don't need anything. So, I mean, it almost sounds heartless, but I think that maybe
I think that's the reality. Just like what Kristen addressed, well, maybe I'm opposite, or maybe you need to feel another. Whatever way you feel is the way you feel. So to me, that's the true pulling off the cover for you to really show your valid feelings regarding that. So again, to all of you or adoptees, when you did meet, how was how hard? I guess my question: how hard was the reunion? Kitty, you just said you didn't know anything else other than facts. What did you expect? What idea did you even have of your birth mom? Did you have this, and what's the word? Is the ghost king? You had this idea, maybe a movie star or whatever, or maybe what were you told doing growing up? What were your expectations when you went into reunion?
My
Anyone,
expectations were
you can
formed
start with that.
from my birth aunt, so that was unfortunate. But I'll let somebody else answer that.
Okay. Okay.
I'll jump in. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. I didn't have real strong expectations. I don't know if it's a guy thing or what, but I just wasn't that sort of. I hadn't invested a whole lot of time in thinking about it. And I remember, and I wrote this in the book. I was very clear. I haven't spent my entire life thinking about this woman. I'm not going to start obsessing over this now.
Okay.
And so I wrote my letter and I dropped it in the mail with the hope that it would find her one day. And I just chose not to invest much more emotional energy in it. I'm not going to lie and say I didn't think about it, because I did start to think, well, what if she does reach out? How are we going to
Right.
reunite? Like, should
Right.
I meet her in a public place in case one of us thinks the other is crazy? You know, should I should I put on a suit even if it's Saturday just to make the best first impression? Like, all of that stuff goes through your
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
But I chose not to really invest a whole lot of energy in it. But I will say the information that I had in my non-identifying info was accurate. It indicated that she had been a librarian. It indicated that my birth father had been a police officer. And thankfully, those were true elements of my narrative. And there wasn't this surprise where, you know, I was told that he was an ambassador and she was,
Yeah.
some a nurse or whatever. Like, there wasn't this false narrative that had been created. They were the people who were indicated in the record, and I thought that was really important, because had I had identity issues with the journey, it would have been really hard to deal with reading something that was supposed to be fact and then confirming that it was a lie, because it would
Right.
call into question every other piece.
Mhm.
So for me personally, I didn't have lies in my backstory, and that allowed me to be in an open space in my mind to look for whoever I was searching for, whoever showed up. I wasn't
Okay.
looking for a movie star or a
Okay.
nurse or, a professor or whatever she could have been.
Okay.
Whatever woman showed up, that was who I was accepting, and I was okay with that. And that was really helpful for me.
Good. Good. With that perception there. How about your birthday? Did you ever think about your birth mom and your birthday? How were birthdays for you?
No, my birthday was my birthday. I mean, it just,
Okay.
again, I was
Okay.
so comfortable in my family.
Okay.
And again,
Okay.
and this also could be a guy thing. Like, I often posit that women, obviously, we know women are more emotional than men. You guys just are more clear thinkers about your emotions. You're more in touch with sort of who you are as people earlier, because
Right.
maturity comes for you earlier than it does for guys.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
believe that, I was just a dumb dude who was thinking about himself going through life, not necessarily thinking sort of introspectively as a young man. And let's be real, y'all can have babies at very early ages. And
Right.
that, I think, probably calls into question a lot more things about your own existence at an earlier
Yeah.
age if you had
Yeah.
not already been thinking about them. This is me speaking. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying to make,
Sure.
I'm not clinically trained, but
Yeah.
this is my sense, having traversed this life, is that, the onset of the ability to carry a child for yourself and the maturity that comes with that at an early age, I think intensifies for many women the search. And I just wasn't there.
Right. Right.
As I said, at 36 years old, when I had my son, that's when it hit me.
Okay. Okay. Good. 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 Now, Christine or anyone else with that, we can sort of turn the tables a little bit for us. So, if we had to spell out things that adoptees wanted their birth moms to know, that you're okay, as you say, once the birth mom gives birth, you don't really know. I was 45 years. Even though there was that sort of connection that I initially knew where he was, but even I remember doing what had been his high school years, is trying to find a yearbook. If he went to school or whatever, it was a picture. I just want to see a picture. That was my first thing. I wanted to see a picture, because my one and only time was when he was 12 days old, when I had to take him from the hospital, from the maternity ward down to the lobby of the hospital to basically meet someone from a law firm to pass to his adoptive parents. So his face was etched in my mind for 45 years. And it's like, I gotta see a picture. That was my fulfilling thing. Picture, and to know that he's okay with that. So with the birth moms here, what were your first things that, or things you want your child, your adoptee, to know before you had met them? And even what was that first meeting like when you first met the day? We're going to talk about that first day for all of you. But Rose, when you start?
So what I wanted her to know was that she was loved. I mean, definitely she was loved. And our first reunion, I was probably the same. Our feelings were probably the same. I was in my 30s and I was just going through a divorce, and I had dreamt of meeting her my entire life. So that's different for, than you guys, but I had definitely, I knew that we would be reunited someday. And so I did think about her on her birthday. I thought about her all the time. And when we finally met, my thoughts were, I can't screw this up. I don't want to screw this up. I wanted to please her just like she wanted to please me. Our thoughts were the same on that. And I'm like her. I wish I knew what I know now. A few things I would definitely do different. But I mean, did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kitty, you as a birth mom, what did you want your son to know?
I wanted him to know that I had placed him because I believed that he would have a better life. So I do want to share at this point that resilience for me was in overdrive, maybe even to the point of stuffing things. Maybe I stuffed the fact that I was adopted and moved on as if I was just like anybody else. I definitely stuffed the fact that I placed a child, that I placed my son. For years, it was blocked. It was something that I would have to deal with in a major way with 3 years ago. So there wasn't a
So
lot
you
of...
don't think you dealt with it prior to meeting your son?
No, I didn't. It was after I met him that it really hit me in a way that shook my world.
Okay.
The reality of it.
Okay. Kristen, what about you as a birth mom?
Sure. So I just want to preface this, that even though I was that person who seemed non-caring and cold about my birth parents, on the flip side, as a birth mother, I did think about my child all the time. From the day I left that hospital alone with no balloons, no plants, nobody, it was nonstop. And but like I said, when it came to time to searching for her, I chose not to, because what if she had that great life? But then I got the letter that she wanted the facts answered, the tallness, and why are my green eyes, and why am I athletic, and this, that, and the other thing. And so that was shared, and it took months. I set up an email address. We communicated. I answered all of her questions. But even then, I wasn't ready. But because my birth parents and my birth daughter came into my life at the same year, I went straight to therapy. I'll be honest. I needed help.
Yep.
It was huge, because I was then feeling what I didn't want to do to either side of them. My apple cart was turned over. And so I had to be okay with where I was in my stage. And I grieved. Let me tell you, for 18, 19 years till she found me, I did grieve. Her birthday was awful. Christmas was awful. Those are the feelings that you have.
Right.
It's natural.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so then when I did meet her, I drove to where she was, and her workplace, for the public, seeing this happen, it's a big deal. It's like, oh my God, there's adoptees in the world, and they're going to meet people. And now you get the balloons. So 20 years later, I had balloons greeting me with my birth child,
Oh,
but
okay.
it was really emotional. And I had other kids by that time, so I brought them along. And so she had siblings, and she was raised as an only child, which was one of my requests when I placed her. I wanted her spoiled rotten, but what I wanted her to know is I knew at the age of 17, I could not give her what I had pictured in my mind she deserved.
Right.
I
Right.
couldn't even find my tennis shoes half the time. How was I going to raise a baby,
Right.
provide
Right.
for it? And I knew that. And I just didn't feel like she deserved to go through what I didn't know about anything.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's what I wanted her to know is I did it out of love,
Oh
100%
yeah.
love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we see whether it was a circumstance or whether it was the fact that you wanted better than what you thought you could give to
Mhm.
your child. And I can honestly speak for myself. And as I said, is that I wanted support from my family system, which I didn't have. And because I didn't have that was why I placed. If I'd had support, I would not have placed. That's the God honest truth regarding that. But in that situation, that was my decision and best for my son at that time. That's the whole thing there. So we talk about reunion. Let's talk about how we have made it and how we've progressed. Therapy is good. Good therapy is good. And we're going to talk about what has been that. And to me, the most wondrous day of my life was when I first met my son for the first time. So I want all of you to talk about. And I know, Damon, you've got a unique thing of when you met your birth mom on a birthday or whatever. So I know all of us have these stories. So let's talk about that reunion days. I want to hear.
Why don't we let the mothers go first?
What was the reunion day like for you, Rose and Christina?
Rose, why don't you
Describe
go?
it. Yeah, describe the day. I mean, what are you thinking before? You know,
Well,
did you sleep before? I didn't sleep for a
no,
week
I
before.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't sleep forever. We had it planned for. It was quite a while, wasn't it, Christine? That we had
A
it
couple
planned.
months.
Yeah, so
Wow.
we had written each other for a while, and then talked on the phone, and then met. And we met in the town that I grew up in. I had actually lived in Wyoming, but we met in Kansas, and it was 5 hours for her and 12 hours for me.
Okay.
And we both got hotel rooms.
Uh-huh.
And my family lived in Great Bend, in the town. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said the town, but they lived in the town. But I told them, I said, you're not allowed to come see us. You're just not. You need to let us.
So you told them you were going to be in reunion, but you didn't tell them where and when it was.
I told them where. They knew where, but I told them
okay.
they weren't allowed to come because this was our deal. This was, and my son was with me, who is I can't even talk right now.
He's younger.
He's my full blood. Full blood.
Oh, okay.
So I had him when I was 19.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I didn't sleep forever before we got there, and my son got really he was just pacing, and I said, just leave, just go do something. So he went out to the lobby. They met in the lobby.
Wow.
And knew, right, Christine?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
They look alike. And then they both came to the door and knocked on the door. And so when I opened the door, there they are.
Wow.
And yeah, you can only imagine what that was like. So.
And before we went live, Christine was saying she remembered exactly, that was 20 some years ago, exactly what Rose was wearing when she opened the door. That's her remembering details. So Christine, talk about how was it seeing your brother, your full brother, in the lobby of the hotel.
It was so awesome. Him and I had also written letters to one another and shared photos, and we had a few conversations. I was 18 at the time though, and he was 16, almost 16. So, he had to play it cool, but I mean, I freaked out when I saw him. But then when, I mean, it was bigger when Rose opened the door to her room. I mean, yeah, she was wearing a yellow t-shirt, and I will remember it like it was yesterday. I had seen a couple of photos of her prior to that. I'd actually been given one on my 18th birthday. It was the first time I saw what she looked like. And I mean, we obviously look quite a bit alike. But for me, it was life-changing. It was
How
life.
so? What was your before and your after life changing things?
I come from somewhere. You know, a lot of times I had felt like I was just this alien baby dropped off by a stork to a really loving home. I mean, you know, my adoptive family they're wonderful people, but I never really felt a sense of belonging anywhere. Like, and I do think for me, not having genetic mirroring was a huge struggle. I mean, we've been in reunion 23 years. We just saw each other a couple weeks ago, and I can't stop staring at her and my aunts and my cousins. Like, it's never going to get old for me, I don't think.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right.
Can I say one more thing going back to what Kitty was saying and Kristen? So the grieving process for me, honestly, I don't think started until 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Yes, I grieved every birthday, every Christmas, all of that stuff. I did that, but I didn't talk about it with anybody. And there we go with that elephant in the room again. There's nobody I could talk about with this. You know, I just couldn't. And so I didn't, except for Christine. I mean, her and I, but we have different, I'm a birth mom. She's an adoptee.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anybody that I could actually talk to. And I was in therapy, and I thought that I was doing the work on that, but I definitely wasn't until Christine got me in touch with the podcast and stuff. And I thought, woo. So, yeah.
Now, I hear you say for you felt the grieving began when you met Christine. Did also you believe that was the start of your healing?
I do. I think that I actually think that my healing is coming full circle, maybe, I guess is the word. I'm just learning so much about the whole dynamics of the situation.
It's adoption is lifelong, so it never ends.
It is.
It never ends, you know, whether the roller coaster was fast before you met, or sometimes it's fast now, you know, it's in reunion. So we're going to talk about how reunion is, what's hard or whatever. And Kristen, and you've met your birth mom, right?
Yep.
Okay. Can you describe that day or just before? What was the feelings and all you were going through?
Well, you know, I had gotten the non-identifying letter, so I kind of knew the physical aspects and that sort of thing. But what was more intriguing was, like when I was in college, there were several girls, which I found out later. I found out why, but they would just sit and they would stare at me. And one day I was at a store and somebody came up to me and they said, "Oh, you drew my blood yesterday. You did such a good job. I didn't even feel it." And when I started to get comments like that and looks like that, I knew there's something going on about me. Didn't know what it was. And then, you know, I worked with this gal who looked just like me. And people would make comments. "Oh, you look alike, you smile alike, you talk alike, you put your ponytail up the same way." And so when I finally agreed to meet my birth mother, I didn't know there were two full-blooded sisters. And so when I walked in, there sat the girl I worked with, who happened to be a nurse, who drew blood, who looks identical to me. And so
you had met your blood sister, before you knew she was your sister.
We were friends.
Wow.
Yeah. And because I went to a private Catholic high school and I was very athletic, things are set up differently. So here, these girls were 20 miles away from me, 1 and 2 years younger than me, and we competed in athletics our entire high school career.
Wow.
And we had no idea. And the other one who is a year younger than me, she's pretty close to looking like me too. But the other one, we're identical. We're 2 years apart, but we are identical in looks.
Wow.
And so that was more intriguing to me. And like I said, I can't live without him. And my birth mother, She's amazing. She was a nurse, and it just all came together because, like Christine, my adoptive dad is 100% Italian, and they went on to have 2 more children. So I was the oldest of 3, the only one who was adopted. I was not treated differently, but I didn't look like them. And like I said, I was very athletic and outgoing. And I had this brother and sister who were artsy fartsy. And to this day, I don't even think they know what a basketball is. So I felt that also. But I never let it get to me. I was okay with it, you know.
Okay.
It was fine.
All right. So that was with meeting your birth mom. Now, how was it meeting your birth daughter?
I worried a lot, like, oh, would I live up to what her expectations were? Would I look good? I mean, even the dumbest questions like, am I fat? Will she think I'm pretty? Will she think I, did I work hard enough? Did I even try? Will she hate me? But she was just so thankful because she had such a great upbringing, and so thankful that I wanted to meet her. And there was no off-color feelings or whatever. She's one of my 6 now. She calls me mom. She's in our holiday pictures. So
wow.
It's been a good reunion for sure.
Great. All right, Kitty. First of all, reunion with your birth mom, and then as well as with your son.
So at the time of reunion, my birth mom lived probably 12 hours away. And my birth aunt had said, hey, your birth mom's going to be in town 30 minutes away from me for this next weekend. So the weekend came, and it was Friday, and it was Saturday, and it was Sunday afternoon. And I'm thinking, she's not going to contact me. So I asked my birth aunt where she was, and she gave me the address. So my friend and I got in the car and went to this family picnic. And we traveled around the block numerous times. And finally, my friend was like, okay, I'm going to get behind the wheel, and we are not stopping until you get out and go and deal with this. So I walked up to this woman sitting at a picnic table, and I said, do you know who I am? And she looked at me and she said, yes. So it wasn't the best reunion, but she was, cordial. She went and introduced me to everybody, that was at the picnic. And I think I might have been there an hour, and then I left.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And with your son?
Well, first of all, I do want to tell you about my birth mom. She struggled growing up. Her and my birth aunt, the only 2 siblings, were not raised by their mom. They were raised by their aunt and uncle. Their mom was not raised by her mom. So there had been a prevailing thing going on. Now, so we'll close the chapter on that. Now I got my birth mom hat on. So my reunion with my birth son, he lives 2 hours away from me. So I drove there, and we met at a mall. And the whole time we sat at a restaurant, and I just kept looking at him in disbelief, like, you're mine. Wow. Whoa. This is so it's so hard to grasp. And he looks a lot like his birth dad, and his birth dad and I were very different, had very difference of opinion on life. And so I had to kind of reconcile with that looking at him, because he does look a lot like his dad. But it was a nice reunion, and it was something that was definitely going to springboard off of us going forward.
Okay. I'm hearing you're reading your stories. I'm coming to you, Damon. Maybe it's a Black thing. No, I never heard all you say. You just bull out cry. I was just sobbing in the middle of a hotel lobby so bad. People were looking at us. It was like, what's up with them? I didn't even care. He was hugging me. He wrapped his arms around me. And I mean, it was like, yeah. So I don't know whether you had to, but I was just overcome with emotion that even when I finally released the brace, it was like, I looked up at him and just said, my son, and he just said yes. And again, so I know for 20 minutes, I may be exaggerating, but it seemed like forever we're just holding each other. So that was that. And so it was like sobbing. I wet his shirt up. I mean, it was just that bad. It was just that bad. Okay, David, coming to you. So maybe it was a black man with this emotion, because I was like, oh, it was like everybody knew. They didn't know what per se was happening, but they knew some real deep emotional stuff was going on between the two of us.
Yeah.
Okay, David.
So my reunion with my birth mother was kind of fantastic because it was so fast that there was no way to sort of really truly prepare for it. So I told you about how I dropped this letter in the mail. Well, about a week later, I get a call from my social worker and she says, we found her. And so I asked my social worker if I was going to get a letter in return from her. I had written my introductory. I was hoping to get something in response because I found it cathartic to sit and dump my emotions into the page.
Right.
A week after that, she calls me again and she says, I have your letter. Do you want me to read it to you or do you want me to mail it to you? I said, read it to me, but not right now. Give me a minute. I got to get out of here. I know I'm going to cry. And this is a massive moment for me. I need to be alone.
Yeah.
Raced out of the office. I called her back. She reads me my birth mother's letter. And, for the first time, I'm hearing this woman's name. She just told me what her birth date is. She shared facts about her life. And this person, through my social worker's angelic voice on the phone, is coming to life through the facts that she shared in her letter. And in one of the facts that she revealed was that the day, her birth date, was the next day from the day I was reading her letter. We spoke by phone that night. We had an instant rapport. We both shed a tear, but we both got along amazingly well. And it was in that discussion that I learned that she also worked for the federal government at the same time I did. I worked for the Department of the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. And she was literally 2 blocks away at the Department of Transportation. So here I am. I now know that she and I work in basically the same area. We get off at the same metro station. And tomorrow's her birthday. I didn't tell her this, but I told my wife, I'm going to find this woman tomorrow and I'm going to surprise her for her birthday.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I did. I cleared federal security, got on the elevator. I had made sure to get dressed in a suit and tie and got myself as, sort of as sharp as I possibly could, because there's only one chance to make a first impression. And I got off that elevator and security had called her before I got on the elevator and said, you have a guest. She was on her way to come get me. And I was instructed to go downstairs and go meet her. So when I got off the elevator, like the elevator doors open and this woman's standing there and she looks at me and she's got this, oh my God, look on her face. She had seen my picture from the one I inserted in my letter. So she knew who she was looking for.
Wow.
I had no idea who I was looking for, but I knew that woman looking at me like that, that was her.
Wow.
And I dove on her. I gave her a huge hug. I cried. I wet up her shirt. I whispered happy birthday in her ear.
It's a black thing.
What are you guys doing? What are you doing for lunch? And I was like, I'm here to see you. What do you mean? What am I doing for lunch? Of course, I'm going out with you.
Wow.
And I couldn't tell you one single thing we said during that lunch because I'm just sitting there looking at this woman's face, going, "Oh my God, I look just like you."
Right.
It was absolutely surreal.
Right.
And when lunch ended, we just walked across the street from her building, and so I gave her a big hug. I told her I love you. We're good. Don't worry. You can contact me anytime you like. We're good. Wow. And she hugged me. She cried, and she walked across the street. And I looked over, and I was like, her building is right there, and mine's right there. I was tripping.
Wow.
And from that day forward, we were able to have lunch and coffee. I would text her and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And we would get together for coffee in like minutes. And it was really.
So how long has she been working at that building? Do you know?
I don't. But what was really interesting about that proximity to each other is we had been in close proximity throughout our lives. She went to Hampton University. So did I. She lived in the area of one of my jobs that I had worked at for several years. She was right in that neighborhood. And then similarly, she worked at this particular job where we were close to each other. But what was really fascinating was I had quit a job to take that job in the Obama administration. So had I not quit and stood still and been in a place to accept this next job, I could have been anywhere. Wow. But I was right next to her. And I find that to be really fascinating, that kind of luck happens with people. And some people will say it isn't luck. and
Absolutely.
far be it
And
from me.
I want to hear some other incidents, because just when you're saying that with my son, it was when I first saw him on social media, sent out a message to him, and it was nearly 3 years before he responded. But our first phone call, I mean, I was like, he talks like, I sounded like me. And we talked about, you talking about both universities, that I went to Lincoln University and I did some graduate work at Virginia State. He went to Virginia State. He had the same major in college I did. He wanted to be a doctor like I did. All those things there. So I want to hear more about for us not coincidence, but things that are so similar, or synchronicities, or whatever you may call it. Anybody else got any to offer that's so that you've been disconnected, but you basically connected because of being that DNA? Any other examples like that?
I mean, I feel like I come from a family. There's so many different people in my maternal family who are part of the helping profession.
Okay.
Like my aunt, Rosa's sister, is a social worker. My little brother is a social worker. I'm a social worker.
Wow. Yeah.
She volunteers for CASA. We have firefighter. Like, there's a lot of helping professional
Okay.
people that I thought was really cool. Nothing quite like some of these stories.
Incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
I do have to tell you,
Go
though,
ahead.
that her brother and my husband and I, to this day, still have, I mean, we're in awe of both of them because they have the same mannerisms. They have, I mean, they just, her and I have the same mannerisms a lot. And we amaze each other a lot. I mean, there's DNA, man.
That's it. That nature and the nurture. With that.
Yeah.
How about you, Kristen or Kitty?
I was just going to share that. So my adoptive family have met my birth family.
Okay.
And the night that my adoptive dad met my sisters, he sat in a corner for 3 hours and just watched. Just watched.
That's what I did when Christine and my son were together.
Yeah.
I did that and watched.
Yeah. He's like, I cannot believe how identical you and your sisters are. And I remember that night. I remember watching him like, what's wrong with you? And then also I was going to say, like Damon's mom, when I met my birth daughter, I stood and stared. I think I was I just wanted to look at her. So I didn't cry. I don't remember crying, but I think I sat and stared at her, just took it all in. Like, this is you. You're in front of me after 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah. I use the word surreal. This is like, it's like, is this really real? Because for me, and I think I heard you say, Rose, that I just knew I would meet my son. I had no clue when, why, how, but I kept believing and knew it. And even after I'd reached out and time was passing, it was nearly 3 years before he responded. I just knew. So I kept that faith that I would do that. And, and parts of it too, to bring up how different things happen doing it. And I call them God things, God winks or whatever, of the fact that you heard it in my story of Damon, as well as Birth Mom's Real Talk, that I ended up meeting the adoptive mom when I was working as a stockbroker. I'm like walking in, it's like, and it was like, your mind is resilient because it's to really deal with that. Because when I put that name to it, it's like, look at that area. And again, that picture behind her that I was trying so hard to see that I never got to see, but I just knew my son was in that picture. And to see that I met the adoptive mom face to face. And it's like, stuff happens. So you never know how it's going to happen over the years, but it's like taking it in. So let's just sort of wrap up and saying, moving forward, how are we growing? How are we healing? Because when I heard Rose said that maybe your grieving started, I felt as if my healing began when I met my son. In fact, he said the same words. My healing began when I saw you in person. So talk about where you are now, because this is lifelong. So it's not that this is going to end next year or whatever. So how are you dealing with life? How are you healing? What are you doing for yourself? What's been your cathartic moments and all of that? If each one of you will share.
I think mine's easy. I'm talking to adoptees all the time, and I'm learning, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much to learn because everybody's general life experience experience is so drastically different. There's commonalities to adoption, right? There's certain thematic pieces that have to happen for an adoption to take place.
Right.
But I think my therapy is the passion that I have for speaking to adoptees and helping them tell their stories. This isn't about Damon. This is about the adoptee community out there who has a lot of stories to tell, and they're not all awesome, and they're truthful.
Yeah.
And that's the important piece that I think needs to continue to happen. And there are a lot of people who are writing their memoirs, starting podcasts, they're YouTube influencers, they're on social media expressing themselves and about their opinions and about their feelings. And that I also take a lot from, is learning how other people are feeling at different moments and how we're all supporting each other.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that too. And just add this now. This is November is next week. It was November 29th that I forget your guest on your podcast, Damon, who was a birth mom. And I think that was the first birth mom you had on. And you were talking, and near the end of your podcast that you made a statement about you wish more that people could hear more from birth moms and sharing their story. And I immediately sent you an email. I was sitting in a park, probably about a mile from where I live. I sent this email, and you immediately responded back. And my email, I said, well, I'm the person. I've been thinking about a way of what I needed to do, and this is it. And so we've been connected since then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How about everybody else? How are you guys healing? How are you coping?
Yeah.
I think, so I do a lot of public speaking in the Twin Cities metro area to high school students, because I just think there is such a stigma and negativity surrounding adoption and the whole situation. And so I do a lot of adoption education. Now my birth daughter has chosen not to tell her adoptive parents that we have a relationship. And so to me, that's a little bit like, it's kind of, I'm not insulted. I just think it's weird for her to try to have to hide me, but that's also her life. And I respect that. And I'm just thankful she wants to be part of mine. And as far as my birth family, like today is pumpkin carving day. So it's just like, I have two amazing families and I do stuff with both of them. And, you know, there is still a lot of healing and talking. And the thing with the social media, as a birth mother, I am attacked a lot. And, you know, the primal wound and all those theories about how we have wrecked our children by tearing them away from their nature and their true mother, that hurts me, because I feel like I made the decision, you know, totally out of love, because I couldn't do it. And so the amount of attacking I face is what I actually need healing from now.
Now, when you say, if I may ask an additional question, Kristen, when you say attack, just comments on your social media?
Comments to me, such as, yes, you're a birth mother, you gave your flesh and blood away. You know, blood is thicker than water. And now you've traumatized this child, and she's going to have an awful upbringing, which she didn't. And, you know, how could you do that? And they're all going, I'm being constantly told that I was traumatized as an adoptee and that I live in this fog. And until I wake up and come out of this fog, I'll truly not know who I am or how I've been traumatized. And that is harder for me to deal with right now than my family's.
And I guess my question, or maybe point to you, is when you hear the attack, what do you then say to yourself? Not necessarily to them, but what do you say to yourself?
That this is my truth. This is my experience, and we're all different. And so that's the only thing really, when it comes to that holds me together, is I don't even need to justify to anyone else what I did.
Absolutely. And the reason why I'm saying that, because along with it, for as in sharing even before me doing the podcast or me just talking publicly about it, and I'll share it very quite frankly, since I've done the podcast, I've gotten some, it's just like getting a crank call. I get it on social media, you know, and I'll just state my truth. They either receive it or not. If they continue on, delete, block. Okay, so I mean, like I'm public. I'm not going to back off from what I'm saying or doing. And whenever someone would comment about me, it's about me and what I believe about myself. That has not changed. Will not change.
Right.
With that.
Yep.
Okay.
Vaughn, I have to go. I have a
Okay.
podcast interview right now. So I'm
Thank
so
you,
sorry, but thank you
Damon,
very
so
much for having me.
much.
Thank
Yes,
It
you.
was really
indeed.
great to meet all of you. Take care. All the best.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for organizing this, Yvonne.
Yeah.
I'm looking
Okay.
forward to talking to you, Christine.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'd love to talk to Kristen and Kitty too. I mean,
I
you
know
guys
you
got some
got other
stories to tell.
adoptees here to
I'm
be
in your
doing your
queue.
podcast.
I know. I've
You
got like a
email me.
whole guest list on the screen here. This
That's
is great.
true. That's true.
Take
Okay,
care,
Damon.
guys.
We'll
All the
talk
best.
this week.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk this week.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So, Kitty, Rose, Christine, what are you doing? Healing? How are you progressing?
So, I found the adoptee community almost 4 years ago, and it has changed my life. I found Damon's podcast, and I found a language to be able to talk about what I felt my entire life, but didn't really know how to put it into words. And so I have a lot of really close adoptee friends. We all have vastly different experiences, but are still brought together by the fact that we're adopted. And so that's a huge part of my healing. As a result of that, I've reeled my mom, Rose, into like every time I found anything that was for birth moms, like, because I wanted her to have that. I think oftentimes birth moms and birth fathers and adoptees in particular, there's not a lot of spaces for us to have a voice, and society's narrative is really not about any of us. And so anytime I find something that I think is healthy, I'm sharing it with people, and it's opened up a whole new world for my mom and I to be able to talk about things.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yes. Kitty, Rose.
Well, I think I'm really sorry today. I'm having a loss of words for some reason. I don't have any words today, but I am diving into the podcast. I'm trying to find a community here in my hometown. I'm trying to navigate that a little bit right now, because I do feel like I think that's important for healing. So
yes, absolutely.
And I have Christine. So
yes, very good. And you have the Birth Moms Real Talk, and also I'll mention the Village. Rose has joined the Village. We're going to start having is this November? I'm like
Almost.
Monday is November 1st. Yes. And we'll be having our first meetings of the Village in November. But again, I want to really be able to be a point of resource too, because you're part of the Village. Kitty is part of the Village. We have Haley. We've got someone from Alaska. So we're spread out all over. But at the same time, what more on other things we can do? Okay. All right, Kitty, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of therapeutic for me to actually work in this field where I advocate and support adoptive parents and adoptees. And I do just enough to be in social media to see what's going on and to glean from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned a lot from Yvonne that, just because you're in a discussion group and all of a sudden you're not welcome when they find out you're a birth mom amongst a bunch of adoptees, I'm not going to deny that part of myself. Mm-hmm. So that's been very good for me to still validate that for me, and to continue to read and also to process and find people like you.
Thank you. Yes. I'm back again, sort of ditto with the Damon. Not that this is the only thing I do with Birth Moms Real Talk podcast. Every time I record a podcast, as Damon is going to record now, that's a healing for me. And part of it too is me being able to be in my feelings whenever they are. In fact, as I mentioned, October 11th was my son's birthday. I took a retreat by the water in Norfolk, Virginia, which was so healing. At the same time, it was a lot of tears, but a lot of just gratefulness, and hearing his response to me sending him a birthday message. Self-care. If I'll say to anyone, birth moms and adoptees, get that self-care, get that healing, get that good therapy, because you've got to be able in processing this lifelong. But give that time to yourself, whatever that designated time. Kitty knows after 1 o'clock on Fridays is my beginning time. And of course, Saturdays, I'm doing the Saturday chat. I'm doing other things. I'm headed to Orlando, Florida on Wednesday. That'll be at a Birth Moms retreat. I put in things to heal me as a person, to be the very best person I can be. Very best person, very best mom, friend, all of that. And that means giving myself that time. My birthday is in December, and I've got things planned for December. Some is work, some is just work only, a play. Had going to Dubai from December 1st through the 11th. It's business, but it's also going to be playtime. On my birthday, December 23rd, I'm taking myself to New York City just for the day on Amtrak. I mean,
Nice.
it's just doing things itself of really pouring back into myself, because that's when we can become the very best that we can be. So I encourage everyone to do that, whether you're a birth mom or whatever. We need this, or else we don't have that clarity of thoughts, and we will not get the desires of our heart or really have an understanding. Because I've got to be clear. When I'm not clear, I just sit down to myself with my journaling and whatever. Got a lot of projects going on, some new things going on. We're coming up for birth moms. Got some other scenarios with some uh, a lot of projects. So you'll be hearing about it as it comes along. This has been so wonderful. As I say, we made history today with a very public dialogue with adoptees and birth moms to answer the questions, ask the questions, and let people look in for that window who are not involved with the adopted community, who really can then just see. Because that's what I had to say. My greatest wish is the fact that society will just understand. But a society can't understand if they do not hear the dialogue. That people, society itself cannot hear when it's a closed support group or people are talking, we're talking amongst ourselves. I'm shouting from the rooftop. Okay. That's where I'm at right now. So thank you again for this. I appreciate y'all. Have a great weekend. We'll be talking soon. Thanks again. This is the Yvonne Rivers, host of Birth Moms Real Talk podcast and Saturday Chat. Peace.